Any word on anybody else planning to show up or not showing up?
We thought Ted and Linda would both be joining by Zoom, so maybe they'll be coming in. We did not hear from Kevin, and we know that Scott is unavailable.
Right, okay. All right, let's begin the meeting then. This is a Lehigh County Authority Board of Directors meeting of April 11th, 2022. This meeting is being held virtually with people present in the boardroom as well as on Zoom. Hopefully everybody can hear each other and be heard. Let's begin the meeting with a roll call of the Board of Directors followed by staff.
So starting with the roll call of the board, Ryan Noggle. Scott Bieber. Dick Bonner.
Here.
Norma Cusick.
Here.
Lyons. Kevin Baker. Linda Rosenfeld. Jeff Morgan.
Here.
Amir, can you say?
Here, I'm sorry, I could not hear you.
All right.
All right.
So we have 5 board members present, so that is a quorum.
Okay.
Okay.
Amir, are you having problems hearing Liesel or anybody else in particular?
Just Liesel got cut off for like a few seconds when she was mentioning my name.
Okay, all right.
Okay. So then for staff, our solicitor, Mike Gall from Kings Spry is on Zoom with us today.
Hello there. I'm having a little problem with my camera for a moment, but we'll take care of that.
All right, well, we can hear you, that's for sure.
Good.
In addition to our solicitor and myself, Lisa Gross, we have Ed Klein, Chris Mullen, Chuck Volk, Susan Sampson, Andrew Moore, Phil DePoe, Mark Bowen, Lisa Miller, Todd Marion, and we also have Ed Hoyle, our chief engineer, here for a specific project, so we'll introduce him at that time.
Okay, thank you. All right, the information for the board was sent out in advance, hard copy, and also available electronically. It's also available electronically for the public to view. I guess we also provided some presentation documents on the web as well. All right, let's review the agenda and the need for executive sessions.
All right, so for today, I have no changes to the agenda, no executive sessions, but there will be 2 comments under staff comments, 1 informational item I want to address, and then just 1 announcement reminder.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, moving on to the approval of the minutes from the March 28th, 2022 Board of Directors meeting.
I have 1 very minor comment to make. When I find it, I will, okay, there it is on page 2. Paragraph that begins with Ed Klein reviews the financial analysis. And we work our way down to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th last line. And the verbiage appears as whether it is necessary is to borrow. The second is eliminated. And that's the only comment I have. Therefore, I make a motion that we accept the minutes to March 28th, 2022 Apple.
I'll second that. This is Norma.
Motion made by Dick and seconded by Norma to accept the meeting minutes with that 1 correction. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
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 Got 3.
Aye.
Okay.
Hear my eye? This is Jeff.
Okay, we got it now. All right, thank you. There was a question that went out about the length of the minutes.
Yeah.
And whether we wanted to consider shortening them to a more shorter version. Did you receive any comments from board members on that, or?
I did receive comments from 3 or 4 board members. suggesting that an abbreviated version would be preferred to just the main points and the action items that were taken as a record. Also asked our solicitor to weigh in on that, and I believe he's preparing comments for the next meeting, but Mike, you're on the call, and if you want to respond to that, you certainly
So
can.
I had a chance, Lisa, to look at it a little bit just before the meeting. I mean, this is something that comes up a lot at board meetings, and the thing we have to follow is the Sunshine Act in regards to the minutes. But the requirements of the Sunshine Act are actually very limited as to what is required. Basically, the date, time, and place of the meeting, the names of the members, presidents, the substance of all official actions, which in your case are the motions and resolutions. And then when a citizen appears in an official capacity, you need to put down the substance of their testimony. Now, it's unclear what is meant by official capacity. So typically what happens is that if a resident appears, you kind of, summarize what their statements were. Beyond that, it's really up to the board to decide how they want to do their minutes. Some have very long minutes, some have more shorter minutes. One of the problems that the LCA has a little bit is that LCA does so much work, and the board does consider so much that it's difficult in some ways to shorten things. I mean, I went back and I looked at the meeting minutes from last meeting, and there was a lot of work that was done in the last meeting. So, that's part of the issue. And that's a good, I mean, I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that in a good way. And in terms of, I applaud how much work is done at the meetings. It's good. But what I think we can maybe do this go around is look at the minutes that are prepared and see whether or not they can be abbreviated a little bit this time, and because that seems to be the sentiment of the board. So does that sound like a plan to the board and to Lisa in terms of how to handle this?
Okay, thanks, Mike. I had not provided any comments, but I'm in favor of shortening the minutes. And we'll consider that further as we go forward.
Okay.
How long do we keep the video recording of this, our meeting?
Right now, I believe they're kept indefinitely. They're posted as an archive on our website. And I think the other thing too, which Linda's not on the call to share this, but her comments were, the materials that we give are so lengthy, the memos and all the attachments, and then the presentations, all of that stuff is public record, and all of it is archived on our website. So a lot of what we're putting in the minutes is just writing in words what is already covered in those materials. So from that standpoint, a lot of the information is in the packet that you receive, and that's all posted online as well.
Okay, just some thoughts for consideration. Right. Okay.
So just to close that one, Lisa, and I can work on maybe a different game plan on how we put the minutes together to try to bring them down a little bit, and you can provide feedback along the way if you want us to adjust that format going forward.
Sounds good. All right, any questions by anybody? All right. We did vote on the minutes, so we moved on to public comments. This time we open up the floor to anybody in the public that has any comments about items that are not on the agenda. Are there any comments?
No comments from me, Brian.
Thank you. All right, moving on to action items. Number 5 on our agenda. We have 2 items that are finance and administration. The first one is seeking approval. There's 10 documents in our board package and digital pages 8 through 25. It's LCA Enterprise Resource Planning, Needs Assessment, and Roadmap.
All right, and before we do that, I just want to be sure, we just admitted someone on an iPad. I think that's usually Kevin, but I want to make sure that that's who it is.
It's Ted.
It's Ted. Hi, Ted.
Hello.
Thank you, Ted.
That's right. Kevin usually comes in his iPhone and Ted's in his iPad.
Okay.
All right, so in your board packet, these are the TAN pages, as Brian mentioned. And I hope the memo was somewhat self-explanatory. We've talked about this issue at a couple meetings in the past, but just to give you some background, our financial system, enterprise resource planning system, ERP system, is called Munis. It's made by Tyler Technologies. And that's been in place here at LCA since 2007. And when we implemented that system, it was configured based on how we were doing business at that time. So fair amount of, not necessarily customization of the software, but customization of the implementation, how we use the codes, how we implemented the system. And we're running into a situation now where we think the system may not be appropriate for how we want to operate today. And we've talked about process improvements in the past and the challenges that we face here. Just as an example, we were looking at our project accounting module that is included in Munis as a feature. And we were attempting to implement that last year to help with some of the things the board is asking about regarding project forecasting and accounting on the project side. And the current evaluation of that module shows that it's really not compatible with how the rest of the system is configured. So we can't use it as it's currently configured. That's just one example of a process improvement we want to make, but can't do it with the system that we have in place today. So back in 2021, we developed a list of what we call process improvement opportunities and created a list of about 100 different items that we thought we wanted to focus on. And a strong majority of them are focused on administrative and financial type processes. So things like the project accounting piece, reporting, payroll, just kind of across the board, a lot of different things that touch on the Munis system and how we do things. So we talked about at one of the prior meetings about staffing for process improvement. We began thinking about this a little differently and thinking that what we really need is an assessment of our ERP system of Munis and what the future looks like. We have three main options that we think are possible or that we want to explore. Number one is fixing what we have. So just kind of working through all the different things that are not working and trying to come up with a way to fix those things, optimize what we have. Another option is to re-implement the system. If we think Munis is the right system for us, just needs to be re-implemented with a different configuration, that's an option. And then of course, the third option is just look for a new solution and a new system and one that provides for the solutions we're really looking for. So we embarked upon this evaluation project. Ed and Chris and I in particular spent quite a bit of time on this and really thinking that we need some help to make this decision and bringing in management and technology consultant to help us with this. So the needs assessment and roadmap that is being presented today for approval is a first step. It's an assessment of how we're using the system today, how effective it is, how we can, the level of integration that we currently have with other systems versus where we want to be in the future. And just recognizing that if we select any of those options for either a re-implementation of Munis or a whole new system, that's going to be a larger 2 to 3 year project. Is that right, Chris?
That's exactly right.
So 2 to 3 years down the road, if we're still using Munis as it is today, we're also going to have to do some form of optimization of the system we have today, just to kind of keep pace with the things we're trying to achieve today. So the project is going to kind of look at both things. What can we optimize today to get more out of the system? And then what's the long-term roadmap for our system and the technology solution that we need? So that's outlined somewhat in the professional services that is outlined in the memo. And we're recommending to move forward with this work through a contract with Raftellus. And some of you are familiar with Raftellus. They worked with us on the strategic plan last year. We were very satisfied with the work that they did with that project. But this is a whole new team, different players, different set of folks who will be working on this project. We thought that we did select, or we did solicit proposals from 3 firms that we thought were qualified for this work, had 3 very good proposals, but we thought that Raftellus stood out. They weren't exactly the lowest cost proposal, but they're in the ballpark of what we expected to spend. And we thought Raftellus had a stronger proposal. Probably the key thing for me was that the project team from Raftellus has a balance of not only technology, but also the financial business process evaluation side, where some of the other proposals were more focused on the technology side. Do we have another earpiece for Dick available?
Any problems here? Anybody have a problem with that?
Yeah, it's a lot of that. The back up.
Speaking of technology, we're doing a quick change out of the earpiece. Sorry about that. Thanks, Lisa. So Raftellus is who we're recommending to move forward with this work. And kind of as a bonus, they've done some work with us in the past. We're familiar with how they operate, and they have some familiarity with our financial structure. So the project professional services authorization is attached to their proposal for $61,025. We think that's going to be a cost-effective way to develop this needs assessment and roadmap for our technology ERP solution. And just a note, a couple notes, this cost is not in our budget. However, it's offset by the decision to not fill the process improvement staff person that we talked about a couple meetings ago. So it's budget neutral, it's actually budget positive because we'll spend less on this than we would on the hiring. The other note, final note, is just a caution that while this is a small, kind of smallish project, it's a needs assessment and roadmap, the next phase is going to be significantly larger if we were to move forward with a full RFP for a new system or to re-implement the Munis system. So this is going to be it's going to be a long-term effort and a long-term project, and there will be some additional investment needed no matter what we do here. This is kind of the first step toward making progress on this. So I'll just offer it up to Ed or Chris, since you guys worked on this with me. Anything else? Anything I didn't cover?
No, I think you covered all the bases on it in terms of what we're planning to do. I think the use of somebody to help guide us through it became necessary when we started to express our displeasures a little bit more outwardly with the system itself. And I think getting somebody else in to watch over our shoulder, help us, is an important thing. And Raftellus, we have familiarity with. So I think that was a good selection, and they can make us think about this very objectively and not be so in tune with the things that really bother us about the system.
Right.
So this is Amir, just a quick question. I think you're on the board of Waterwork Association. I forgot the name of the organization. Is there any way that we can benchmark ourselves versus, what is in the industry, the best practice, to see really if they have something there, it is doable for us? Is it a good step, or you guys think the reason you bring in consulting is basically provide you the benchmarking?
I'm not sure I understand what you're suggesting we benchmark against or about.
Well, I mean, if you look at the company or the operation the size of ours, that there are a lot of the municipal companies who are using the same system. Are we trying? Does it make sense that we reach out to them to see if they have a system that is working for them and see if that is what we are looking for to implement, rather than getting a consultant first, maybe Chris or Ed to go to a company who is a same size as ours, and they have a system which works for them. And we can see if we get to that point that they are today, we can recognize whether that system, I'm sorry, is a system which would minimize the amount of the side work that we have to do in our organization.
So Amir, I'll give my opinion, and Ed and Chris can certainly jump in as well. But my opinion is what you're talking about is actually more of a second or a future look at this, because what we need to do first is understand our business processes, what makes them unique, why we're having the challenges that we're having, and what we need a system to do. Because there are plenty of other systems out there. There's also plenty of utilities that are using Munis that we could talk to and have talked to. But what's different about those utilities and LCA is the business process that we're following. So we need to do some work internally on looking at our business process and how that impacts how Munis is configured and how we want to change that moving forward. So I think this step is critically important before we start looking at what other systems are out there.
Thank you. That makes sense. Thank you.
And if I could add in a little bit of background to this, Amir, a few years ago, we did an IT master plan. And as part of that, the company that worked with us, Easy Micro, did a bunch of interviews with our internal users of Munis. And a lot of these issues that we're still fighting with were identified back then. And internally, over the last several years, we've been trying to rectify these ourselves with the help of Munis, and have struggled to make any headway. So I think what's happened is, based on our strategic plan for the next 5 years, it's come to a head. And I believe that the absolute next step is to have everybody internally here remove the emotion from the process and get an outside consultant that can give us facts and get us where we need to be. Because right now, if you ask me what I think about it, I'm going to give you my view through my rose-colored glasses over 5 years, and it's not going to be shiny.
No, it makes sense. Does Oracle offer an ERP for the system that the company like ours?
They do not. So I don't know if you're familiar with Great Plains, Microsoft offering.
Yes, I do.
They changed their name recently. I forget. I do apologize. And what they offer is their base product, but with an adder to add in the utility billing, I think, which is the one module that would be specific to what we do. In talking with Ed and Lisa over time, everything else we use is fairly standard, but the utility billing and the utility billing structure of how we deal with customers in that regard is the specialty part of the process here.
Thank you. Thank you for explanation.
Yes, sir.
Any other board questions? Just Chris, Munis has been around for how many years for us?
Since 2008, I believe. 2007.
And during that period of time, have there been revisions to their programming that's been adopted? And so we've taken this hailstone and added layers to it.
Correct. And actually, currently, we have tried twice in the last 12 calendar months to jump to the next upgrade, which would offer better reporting for Ed. And both times, upgrades have failed due to issues with the Munis platform itself, through no fault of any LCA internal staff.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? So one more, we just reviewed the administration of finance administration budget for 5-year plan. Was there anything in there for this, or I don't recall? Or do we have, will that be adjusted as a result?
Capital plan.
The capital plan.
This was not included in the,
Okay.
yeah, so that would be a revision in the 2023 budget process and moving forward.
Following the results of the evaluation.
Was not in the cap.
All right. All right, They're looking for approval of a professional service authorization to Raftellus. I will need a motion in a second.
I'll
So
make the
moved.
motion.
Oh,
I'll second it.
All right, I didn't get the first.
Norma.
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 Okay.
And then
everybody-
Amir.
Okay, Norma and Amir, all right, thank you. All right, any questions? Voice vote on this, please.
So this is a vote on the Raftellus PSA in the amount of $61,025. Brian Noggle,
Yes.
Dick Bonner,
Here. Yes.
Norma Cusick,
yes.
Williams. Ted,
Yes.
Jeff Morgan,
Yes.
Yes. I did not hear you, Lisa, again.
sorry. We do have 6 yes votes. Thank you. Sorry about that, Amir. Thank
Okay.
you.
Amir, again, are you hearing everything that's being said here?
Yes, just Lisa then called my name, suddenly the whole thing goes silent. I don't know why.
I swear I'm saying your name out loud, Amir.
No, I know, Lisa. I'm just-
You'll have to project your voice upwards to the speaker.
Yeah.
Receiver. Okay, all right, so motion passed. This time we move on to the next item under finance and administration. It's the, for discussion, it's digital board package 26 through 80. And it's the 2023 to 2027 capital plan for the Allentown Division preliminary plan presentation. And I think that's in white in our packet.
Yes, and before we jump into that one, I wanted to mention that in the packets, we also included just a memo and some updated pages for the suburban division capital plan. So you have that. That's not for discussion today. We just want to make sure you're aware that that was included in your packet. So include it with your last month's packet for reference in the future. So for the Allentown Division Capital Plan, just go with the Chuck and Ed presentation. I do have a presentation to share on the screen, which was also emailed to the board and posted on our website.
Okay, thanks, Lizo. Hello, everyone. At last meeting, I presented the admin and the suburban 2023 to 2027 capital plan. And today I'm going to present the Allentown Division capital plan. This is just a preliminary plan presentation. On this slide, you'll see the different stages of plan approval as we go through the process to implement a project. So we start with the capital plan and it's just conceptual. And then the board gets exposure to the projects and opportunity to approve the projects again at budget. And of course, at individual project approval, which I bring to the capital plan at meetings, or I bring to the board at meetings rather. This is the timeline for the 2023 to 2027 capital plan process. Today, I'm presenting Allentown Division. Today begins the public comment period for the Allentown Division preliminary plan. And then I request final board approval on May 23rd. So we get a minimum of 30 days public comment period out there. And we approve both at the same time. This is a listing of the annual and recurring Allentown Division projects. We have our smaller projects, which we bundle up into what we call annual projects. I have a breakdown on the following slide of those projects. Those are mostly required due to asset management efficiency and just needed rehab. The indenture improvements, those projects are the result of the annual indenture report, which is required by our trustee to demonstrate that we are maintaining the assets in accordance with the lease. And there's annual improvements that we need to make under that report. We have the annual water main replacements. The restated and amended lease requires us to install and replace 4 miles of water main between 2021 and 2025. We did 1 mile last year, so we have 3 more miles to do per the amended and restated lease. The capital plan assumes that in 2025, we resume rather doing 2 miles a year. In 2024, we're supposed to evaluate the effectiveness of the program and make a decision whether to go from 1 to 2 miles. So for the purpose of the plan, we're assuming starting 2 miles per year in 2025. And then lastly on that list, we have various water system related studies. We have budget this year to do master plan at the water filtration plant. These studies are required every 5 years per the lease. We last did one in 2017 for the water plant. So we're due this year to resume that process. This is a breakdown of the annual projects. The largest buckets of money here are under general water system improvements and reservoir rehab and maintenance. When you see the different categories here of the annual projects. These are the larger projects for Allentown Water, starting on the top with water meter replacement project. The plan shows a 2025 construction start. What that is, that's 4,300 what's called Badger meters, or they're an old style meter with outdated transmitters, outdated radios that require replacement, and that's slated for 2025. The next project down is a fixed base meter reading project. That project would allow instantaneous reading of all 33,000 and change water meters in the city for monitoring, tracking water loss, consumption in real time. That's projected to start in 2025 as well. And for that, you need, all your meters have to have updated transmitters and radios in order to implement that project. We have filter upgrades, construction starting next year. That project is currently in preliminary design phase, and we're anticipating commencing construction next year. And that replaces, that's a master plan project, replaces filter under drains, backwash valve, provides an air scour system and new controls. And it's going to be an interesting project. It'll be phased over the course of 2 years. So we do 1 filter at a time. There's 8 filters total. The next project on the list is intake upgrades. For the purpose of the 5-year capital plan, we're just looking at the Little Lehigh intake, the 1953 intake. It needs a new mechanical screen device. So that's what's in the plan, slated for 2026 construction. Moving down, we have tank and reservoir rehab. That's largely a mechanical project at the 6 locations, the 6 tanks and reservoir locations in town. Sean Spring, Huckleberry Ridge, South Mountain, Halstead Pump Station, Eastside Reservoir, and the filter plant wash water tank. And then the last project at the list is a large diameter valve replacement project. You're going to hear from Chris later today about this project. The inception of this project was a result of the break in late 2020 on Devonshire, where we discovered some inoperable large diameter valves. And that is critical that we do a study, that we identify those valves. Those valves are critical for isolating the system in event of water main breaks and also for routine maintenance. So the study phase of this project will prioritize valves that require repair or replacement. So this is just kicking off this year. And then that will result in multi-year capital projects. This is just a picture of the filters over at the plant. On the left, there's a shot of operating filters. And on the right, you can see what it looks like under the water surface. You can see the surface of the media, and you have your troughs there. The filter project will remove that media from each filter and install a new under drain system, and then replace the media along with associated mechanical upgrades. This is the project that we're doing now. We're just waiting for material to be delivered. It has been very frustrating with supply chain issues, but that project will be finished this year, and it is removed from the capital plan because it's going to finish this year. But everyone is well aware of this project, and this is a PennVest project. So we're taking our first VFD delivery next month. So we're excited to finish up that project. These are completed projects. I was just talking about the high service pump VFD project that's being removed from the plan, and the Itron automatic meter reading project. That project was funded by the city, and that's closed out. So that has been removed from the plan as well. We have a nice shot here of Klein's Island. I'll talk about the wastewater projects now. First off is the annual projects. There's a breakdown on the next slide. That's routine required maintenance. It's just a bundle of a whole bunch of wastewater, smaller wastewater projects. The indenture report improvements, which is similar to what we do at the filtration plant. It's the same report. It just has a section for water and a section for wastewater, and that's required by our trustee. Various wastewater system related studies. We will be coming up on the 5-year update of the master plan next year over at Klein's Island. So that money is budgeted in the plan. S11 there is regional flow management strategy. This is a city-funded project that will conclude in a couple of years, and this is required by the interim Act 537 plan. This is one that Phil is managing. And that consists of internal lighting, point repairs, dig ups, I&I related things in accordance with DEP requirements. The next one down the list is flow characterization study. That deals with the regional KISS sewer model and development of Act 537 analysis and alternatives. That project, this year's money is basically dedicated to model development and calibration. The next project is flow characterization study, inflow and infiltration projects. This is funded by LCA, and this begins in 2024. And this is just more I&I reduction as required by DEP. And the last one on that list is miscellaneous Act 537 planning. This project was added this year. It's intended to cover miscellaneous planning duties to be determined. And here's a breakdown of the annual wastewater projects. The largest one being the general improvements at Klein's Island. These are the large projects, starting with the electrical substation replacements. We call this phase 2. This project was bid back in 2017, and it included substation 1 and substation 2. We only performed substation 2 due to budget constraints. So we're dusting off that design And we're going to complete the design this year and bid the project for construction next year. This is a critical project. The substation is over 50 years old. The substation and the 12.4 kilovolt switchgear are in urgent need of replacement. So we're going to do that project, start that project next year and finish it in 2024. The next one is the main pump station and the auxiliary pump station improvements. That project is scheduled to start construction in 2025. That project is a master plan project. It's actually a combination of two master plan projects, the main and the auxiliary pump stations. And the reason for that project is needed to provide wet weather conveyance through the plant. And the pumps in the main pump house are over 50 years old. They're from the 1965 plant upgrade. And the piping and valves in there are even older. They predate that project. They're severely corroded. The pumps are in dire need of replacement. So this will be a good project to get that done and combine that with the auxiliary pump station project. That project provides upsized motors and variable frequency drives to the auxiliary pumps to increase the wet weather conveyance capacity of that critical station. There's also miscellaneous valve replacements and piping replacements. Next project is boiler replacement and solids process HVAC upgrades. That project is in design right now, and we have actually a meeting with DEP later this week to get a permit exemption for this project because it's largely replacement in kind. What it is, there are 3 boilers associated with the solids process at Klein's Island. 2 of them are in a basement area below a causeway that connects the digester building with the dewatering building. It's a maintenance nightmare. There's no easy way to get the equipment out of there. The equipment is very old. And so what we're going to do is replace those boilers and put them in an expanded garage area that's approximately 22 by 35 feet in dimensions, and replace the 3 boilers because there's a 3rd boiler that's associated with heating the buildings. So we're going to consolidate those 3 boilers into 2 new boilers and add various biogas booster pumps and mechanical equipment associated with the solids process heating system, with heating the digesters and those buildings. The next project down the list, it's the intermediate pump station and 480 volt motor control center replacement project. This project is going to run parallel with the main and auxiliary pump station improvements. This project is also needed to improve wet weather conveyance through the plant. It involves replacement of 6 intermediate pump station pumps and variable frequency drives. The intermediate pump station pumps effluent from the primary clarifiers to the top of the trickling filter towers. There's 3 pumps in that pump station that their purpose is to do that. Also in that common building are 3 other pumps which take the effluent from the plastic media trickling filter towers and pump it up to the intermediate settling tanks. So what happens at flows of around 84 MGD, the electrical equipment in that pump station overheats. So that is a real problem that the plant has been dealing with for years. And the intention is to replace variable frequency drives and electrical components and pumps to eliminate that situation and enhance wet weather performance at Klein's Island. And the last project on that list is a rehab of final clarifiers 1 through 4. Those clarifiers, the mechanical equipment has been in 24/7 operation for over 50 years. And this is a master plan project as well. And then there's a need to take them down one at a time, refurbish the mechanical components, the bottom sludge scraper, the clear well, replace the drive. Those drives are really expensive. And I can only imagine the lead time on those. But that project is not starting until 2027, and it will complete in 2028. Like I said, it's going to be a 2-year project because we have to take the tanks down one at a time. Here's a picture of substation number 1. On the left, you see substation number 1 in the back, and in the foreground is the switch gear, what we call the primary 12.4 kilovolt switch gear. And then on the right is just another shot of substation number 1. So that involves a lot of construction phasing. It's going to be an interesting project. The contractor is going to have to provide temporary power during this project. So construction phasing is something we want to pay close attention to during final design and make sure we're protecting the resiliency of the plant. And here are a couple pictures of the pump stations. On the left is a picture of the main pumps. In spite of the age of the pumps, you can see that the staff did an excellent job of maintaining them. I mean, from this picture, they look like they're brand new. And on the right, that's a picture of the auxiliary pumps. Now, those pumps are not being replaced. We're going to put larger impellers in those pumps and upsize the motors and upsize the VFDs to convey more flow through the plant, but the pumps themselves are staying. And here we have a picture of the boilers. The picture on the left, those are the digester boilers, those heat, the primary digesters. Those are the ones that I mentioned are in a basement. Actually, there's concrete slab sections above those boilers, and they had to be removed to install those boilers. So it's not a very maintenance conducive area down there. And then the boiler on the right, that's the boiler that's used to heat the buildings in the solids process. And that is the area where we're doing the building extension, the 22 by 35 foot building extension in that area. And there's also a sprinkler system expansion associated with this. Now we're getting into Ed's financial analysis. I'll turn it over to Ed.
So that's a lot of project work, sitting there looking at the numbers. And you're at 75, a little bit better than $75 million of project work over a 5-year period. And where it's going to come from is also good news. We're going to get some money from the city of Allentown. And we said $4,150,000, which timing wise will come about in 2023, was started in 2022. About $4.2 million worth of money coming from the city of Allentown ARPA. And then the rest of it is coming from cash flows, current cash flows, and any cash reserves. I mean, and you know, when we went through I'll call it the renegotiation on the lease, this was exactly the picture that we were looking for. That we would be able to do the magnitude of projects that we needed to do. And we would be able to fund them without really borrowing money to do it. And so we don't have any borrowing in this plan. With the $71 million of money coming out of cash operations and reserves. Water is going to tap in about $36.5 million of that money. Wastewater will be about a little bit more than $34 million, and do have allocated admin, the stuff that we talked about when we did the suburban cap plan Like I said, then projects funded by the ARPA grant from the city as they share some of that for water projects and sewer projects. And then there's $2.1 million worth of money that will be directly reimbursable by the city for the regional flow management stuff, $750,000 on regional flow characterization study of 800 and a flow management study of 600,000. So we'll get that directly from the city as we do FY 37 work.
And just for clarification, we can update this slide. This should not say new borrowing, it should say grants. Right, this
Oh,
is
yeah.
the city's,
Yeah.
just for the public presentation, that's a typo.
Yes, I missed that. I was looking at all the money and missed that. This is what the cash flow would look like. You can see in 2023, we're gonna hit revenue of 48, and that's gonna grow over the 5-year period to almost $64 million. Non-operating revenues, we don't try to predict too much growth in that, but we'll be at $2 million in 2023, and that'll drop down some to 750,000. In terms of the assumptions behind the revenue, we did not build any volume increase. If we get some growth in the city, that will be a good thing, but that wasn't what we put in the model. The 2.5% lease is every year, and then I factored in a CPI index that is somewhat conservative, but again, I'm paying attention to the experts who are saying that the 3% inflation in 2023 is going to come down in a couple of points through 2027. So I'm not trying to make it look prettier by using abnormally high interest rates. Even with the, I'll call it the decreasing CPI, and we're going to still have about $18 million worth of cash in 2023, and that's going to climb to almost 27 million in 2027 in terms of unrestricted cash. We don't have any more investments. The money that we had once had in investments has been used up from the initial tranche. So, however, the days are looking pretty good with respect to cash balances. We're 295, I'll hover around 290, 286, and then down to 254, and then right back up to 400. I thought what was interesting was when I was looking at the CAPEX money, we're talking about almost $13 million in 2023, and somewhere in 2026, we're gonna be almost $21 million at CAPEX. So the days cash on hand look good. Certainly better than the 180 that we always set to have. In terms of debt service coverage ratio, the only debt that we had in there, the 63,000 is related to the VFDs where we're doing the Penvest borrowing. That's all there is. So we'll be holding our own on debt service coverage ratio. It will go from 1.71 to 2.23 over a period of 5 years. So I'm pretty happy with this. This at one time was challenging, and now we met the challenge.
So that's my presentation. The only challenge is implementing all these projects. So it's an ambitious plan. It's all needed. I believe the capital plan justifies each project. I'll entertain any questions that anybody has.
Just a comment, very good presentation, very clear, it's nice, you know what you're doing there, so thank you. Any other board comments, questions? Again, we'll see this again. This is the first review of the capital budget for Allentown Division. Any public comments?
Not at this,
Sorry.
And Brian,
Yeah, not at this time. We are reviewing the capital plan, so we'll be providing comments later.
okay, thanks, Brian.
Oh, and that's what I was gonna mention. I know that the city will be reviewing it. LVPC always does some kind of review letter. If the county commissioners are interested in a presentation, we'll make ourselves available to do that. And any comments that are submitted, we'll compile and present to the board at the time we ask for approval.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to water issues. First project is the blue packet in our board packet, and it's pages 81 through 84 digitally. It's large diameter valve prioritization program. Sorry. Problem.
Close enough.
All right, thank you.
All right, and this is being presented by Chris.
Thanks all. As Chuck mentioned earlier, large diameter valve prioritization is a big item in our new strategic plan that we've recently laid out. What we're looking to do is engage with Gannett Fleming to help us prioritize our 16-inch and greater valves within the Allentown Division water system. Ultimately, we're looking for the report to give us assistance with the budgeting needs and help us implement a yearly plan for maintenance and replacement. One of the major benefits of this, it'll help us address any of the critical valves to help eliminate any issues with our customers and to have us to back off of our reactive maintenance costs. This project has been approved for funding through the Allentown Division. It is listed in the 2022 Allentown Division capital budget. And this is for an engineering study only if there is any further design or construction related to this report. It's a to be determined on how we will address that in upcoming conversations. So ultimately what we're looking for is a capital project authorization for $78,600, $58,600 of which is for professional services for Gannett Fleming, and then $10,000 for staff, $10,000 for contingency.
Any questions by the board?
This is Jeff. Just a general question. Are these valves exercised regularly? Should they be? Is that part of the overall program once this is all put together and finalized?
That's the ultimate goal, Jeff. Currently, I would say they are not exercised as we would like them to be. So this is identification of priority valves, and then subsequently a plan to work through a preventative maintenance plan for all of them and or replacement of valves that we deem dangerous to the system.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Question is, why aren't you exercising these valves to find out what works and what doesn't work? And is something that's difficult to do while it's operating? Obviously, they're huge valves.
It's very difficult to do while in operation, but ultimately the primary focus is always the smaller system valves that allows us to isolate smaller areas for repairs. Anything that we're talking here, if you look at the Devonshire break, was a 36-inch line. Devastating to lose, and even more challenging to isolate to make sure that we could work on properly. So ultimately, this report will allow us to address these in a more managed fashion.
I just wanted to add too that the large diameter valves were specifically excluded from the lease operating standards because the city recognizes how critical they are. And the risk that the system faces if you go and operate a valve that falls into disrepair in the middle of a maintenance activity. So until we do the evaluation, we don't want to just go out there turning these large valves that have the potential to impact large portions of the population. So.
Okay, I understand that. How are they going to determine if they work or not, or prioritize them?
It's part of the interview process with the internal staff, and they are going to put some equipment on valves. With new valves, stuff like a Walks turning machine will allow you to estimate torque and torsion when you're trying to turn valves. So it will give us a rough estimate of what is expected. And the Gannett Fleming team knows very well limitations of what they should see and what they should not see. So as part of that report, we're expecting to see the actual numbers related to the amount of torsion that's required. Numbers too high, stop right away, leave it sit where it is, and then prioritize based on location, size, and how it affects the system.
In the process of doing that, is there going to be a backup plan, so in case something fails?
Absolutely.
Which we don't want to have.
We've had Jason Gruber in here quite a few times, and if anything, Jason is prepared, anxious and prepared for this. This is one of the items that keeps him up at night.
Imagine. All right. Okay, we have a capital project authorization of $78,600 with a professional services authorization began at Fleming of $58,600. For a motion and a
I'll
second.
make that motion.
I'll second it. This is Norma.
Okay, thank you. Motion made by Dick and seconded by Norma. Opportunity for any questions? Okay, hearing none. Let's have a voice vote on this, please.
Okay. This is a voice vote on the large diameter valve prioritization program, capital project authorization and PSA to Gannett. Brian Noggle,
Yes.
Dick Bonner,
Yes.
Norma Cusick,
Yes,
Ryan,
Yes.
Jeff Morgan,
Yes.
Peter Camille.
Yes.
With 6 votes. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Critical project.
Yes.
All right, moving on. Next is Suburban Division. It's yellow documents in our board package. Seeking approval, digital board package 85 through 87. Suburban Division, Farview Farms Pump Station demolition. Seeking approval.
Yes, Chuck.
Okay, thanks, Liesl. Ed Hoyle is going to present this one real briefly. This is to demolish an abandoned well station in Upper Milford Township. We tied in our central Lehigh system into serve this development with the Kohler pump station project, which you folks approved a few years ago. So this enabled our wells to be taken offline. And what we have before you today is a proposal to demolish our infrastructure there and allow selling the property, selling the vacant lot in Farview Farms development. So I'll turn the rest over to Ed Hoyle, our chief engineer.
Yes, well, Chuck gave you the background, and we had hired Dewey to prepare specifications for us. And then that was advertised on the Penn bid platform. And you can see that we received only one bid, and that was from Brightfields Incorporated for $115,500 for the demolition of the station. We wish we would have gotten more, but that is the only one we got. We do note that when Dewey was putting the engineer's estimate together, that they had a range of from like 143,000 up to 200,000 for what they considered would be the bidding environment. And this bid was substantially below that, below the low end of their estimate of 143,000. So we are pleased that bid did come in that low. We did reference checks, and it just mentions there that in calling the references that they were all pleased with the work that was done. This is a company that anticipates problems and looks for solutions, and generally the people were very satisfied with them. And we checked out their bid package. There was no problems found with that. And so we're coming to the board with a recommendation that this demolition project be approved. And then we will come back later to ask the board to consider sell the property once we get through the demolition process.
We do have a picture of the property to share with you all. So you can get a sense of what we're talking about.
That's the well station building there on the right, and to the left, there's buried contact tanks. Where it provides the detention time required by DEP for disinfection. And then it's in a cul-de-sac, so it's, I think it's a prime, it looks like a prime lot, assuming our stuff isn't there.
Okay,
So the project is basically to remove that building, to remove the tanks, dispose of everything in accordance with DEP requirements, and restore the lot. So it will be a vacant restored lot when the work is done.
okay. I know that we've tried to get away from having like a miscellaneous category in the project authorization. Put that in the contingency. Do you want that miscellaneous included within the contingency, or?
Yeah, that should be part of the contingency. And there's a mistake on the capital project authorization. The line to date with above, it should read 163.5, not 130, well, not 143.5. So I apologize for that oversight.
Okay. Any thought on, is there any desire by the community, since the property's been there for some time, to not have it sold and converted into another house or something like that versus a park or anything? Has there been any interest shown by?
There's been interest in buying the property.
Okay, all right.
I can tell you that. I believe one of the neighbors wanted to expressed interest in purchasing the property. And I got a call from a realtor a while back that somehow heard that our station was abandoned and asked when we're going to sell the property and how we're going to do it.
And that would fit in with the rest of the community.
Yeah, there's zoning, strict zoning requirements of what it could be.
Okay, all right, thank you. Need a motion and a second for capital
I have a
project?
question, please. Yeah, I think when we have a case like this, where we have only one bid and the bid is way below the project engineer's estimate of what it should take, do we sit down with the contractor and descope the job and make sure they have everything in it and so forth and so on?
Yes, we, at minimum, we have a discussion with the contractor to verify that they understand the scope of the work and they weren't missing anything in their bid. Not that we would let them change their bid, but just to make sure that, they have, I think there's language, they can retract their bid within a certain amount of time. But I believe that discussion was had with the prospective contractor and the contractor.
Yeah, I don't mean about pulling the bid. I just mean to make sure that contractors, having been one, do make mistakes, and we want to make sure that they didn't innocently leave something out that causes such a disparity between budget and real number. And I hear what you're saying is that you've done that.
Yes, there's some salvage value associated with the tanks.
Okay, fair enough.
To take into account.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any other board questions? All right. Need a motion in a second?
I'll make the motion. This is Norma.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
I did, I did. This is for capital project authorization, construction phase, Farview Farms well station demolition project with a professional service authorization, construction, nothing required. Contract award to Brightfield's General Construction for $115,500.
You want a voice vote?
I would like a voice.
All right. Voice vote, Brian Noggle,
Yes.
Dick Bonner,
Yes,
Laura McCusick,
Yes,
Ed Lyons,
Yes,
Jeff. Jeff, can you hear us?
Oh, I can hear you now. I couldn't hear my voice. I didn't know if you said Amir or Jeff. So yes.
you're cutting out on us.
Okay, sorry about that. Jeff was a yes. Amir?
Yes.
Thank you. We have 6 yes votes.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving on to wastewater, City of Allentown, 2022 nighttime weiring, seeking approval. It is the gray documents in our board package, digital packages, pages 88 through 95.
All right, so Phil is making an appearance at this meeting. Phil DePoe, take it away.
Thanks, Lisa. This is gonna sound a lot like the first board meeting in March, where the board authorized Arcadis to perform nighttime weiring services in the Western Lehigh area. With this authorization is the exact same service, but now it's gonna be in the city of Allentown. And as a side note, this will be the first time ever that this type of service has been performed in the city. And what this, as a refresher, what this is taking data that was collected last year, and we are going to try to locate by neighborhood where the groundwater problems are most prevalent in the city. If you recall, there's 2 portions of I&I. There's the inflow piece, which is, basically rainfall and inundation from the manhole. And then you have the infiltration piece. And what the nighttime weiring does, it focuses on the groundwater infiltration piece. And what you do is, after you identify the hotspot areas within the system, you physically go inside a manhole and you install a weir at nighttime. So from midnight to 6 a.m., when all the flow is supposed to be, non-existent except the groundwater. So you measure the groundwater, then you go, so basically neighborhood by neighborhood, and it tells you where the problems are, where the groundwater is coming in from. And so what we're gonna do with this information is, after we have the neighborhood problem areas, you have to create what's called source reduction plans in order to remove the groundwater. So we're gonna take the data that's collected this spring and what we have self-imposed on the entire region in order to meet our schedule, which is, there's 0 slack in the 537 schedule. So the SRPs are due by middle of August of this year. And the reason why they're due by August is because the rest of the year will be, after the model is calibrated, we're gonna start running scenarios. And before we start running scenarios, we wanna load into the model everyone's plan to tackle I&I. And if you don't know where the problem is, you're guessing how to fix the problem. So this nighttime weiring will help identify where the problems are for groundwater infiltration. And then the next step is, again, to create the SRP. And this just happens to be for the city of Allentown, but everyone is being requested to supply their SRPs. And then, of course, that gets loaded into the model so we can take credit for future I&I work. And then that'll allow us to start running scenarios later half of this year. So this, again, this is a city of Allentown funded project via their AO bond money. Upon authorization, Arcadis will start immediately. There are about 2 weeks remaining out in the Western Lehigh. So as soon as they're done in the Western Lehigh, they're going to move right over to the city of Allentown. It'll take about 2 months to complete that work. So by the end of, beginning of June, we should have the data compiled. By the middle of June, we'll have it ready to make recommendations. So with the window to create the SRP is not big. So it's gonna be a time crunch between now and August to get the plan ready. So again, if people don't provide a plan, then so be it, but it is a requirement of the 537 plan to have something identified by the submission date. But of course, the submission date is not till 2.5 years from now, but we need this, we need this information now for the model. So that's kind of a high level of why we're talking about the nighttime wearing. But again, this is a highly specialized service. With that being said, I'm requesting capital plan authorization in the amount of $241,000, which includes $211,000 to Arcadis. And again, they will start immediately and they will be wrapped up by the early June.
Have you had discussions with DEP on their basic approval of this process to do what we're trying to get done?
Yes, so if you do recall, every quarter, I have to submit a connection management plan update, and that one's due in actually 3 days. So what was created over the past month was we took all the 2021 data, we compiled it into the RDII analysis. We are going to give that to DEP this week, and we're planning to meet with DEP in August to go over that topic. So again, it's a requirement of the interim plan to focus on I&I. And what the SRPs are going to do is going to be from 2023 through 2033. So it's a 10-year look ahead for projects. So we're going to get into details with DEP later this summer.
One more question. Any sense about the satellite signatories that come into Allentown system, whether they're doing this themselves, each of them, or are there some that are not doing it?
Yes, so Arcadis and I met with everyone individually last month. So again, all 7 of the Western Lehigh group is doing nighttime wearing, city's doing nighttime wearing. Copley Whitehall Sewer Authority wants to do nighttime wearing. They're going to handle that separately with Arcadis. And the others have not indicated that they want this service. So again,
It's their choice.
it's our choice.
Just to qualify that though, the other signatories are all aware of the need to put a source reduction plan together and are working toward that. It's just whether or not they decide to do this process, this part of it.
Right, and every signatory is so different, regarding, some people have really high groundwater problems, some people don't. So again, this nighttime wearing is to focus on the high groundwater problems. And if the others choose not to do that, then they're gonna have to come up with a plan on how to tackle it.
All right. Okay, any other questions? Need a motion and a second for this capital project authorization?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it. This is Norma.
Motion by Dick and seconded by Norma for Allentown Division, City of Allentown, 2022 nighttime wearing capital project authorization of $241,000, which includes a professional service authorization to Arcadis for 2022 nighttime wearing for a total of $211,000. Any questions? Please vote.
Let's vote. Brian Noggle,
Yes.
Dick Bonner,
Yes.
Norma Cusick,
Yes,
Ed Lyons,
Yes.
Jeff Morgan,
Yes.
Peter Famili.
Yes.
Have 6 yes votes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, moving on, the agenda, item number 6, monthly project updates, the digital board package 96 through 103 is attached, white papers in our board package.
Yeah, so just a couple things to highlight. Part 1 of the report reviews upcoming agenda items. We've covered about half of them today, and we have about half of them to do next time around. As usual, we'll go through our monthly financial review at the next meeting. We also have an annual or semi-annual process that we do for destruction of documents, official destruction of documents authorized by resolution. We'll do that at the next meeting. At the next meeting, we're also planning to offer a quarterly progress report on our strategic plan that was approved in December. We've been working it for the first quarter of 2022 and have some updates in progress we'll share with you at the next meeting. We have a couple of other authorizations that we'll ask for at the next meeting. Actually, just one other one will be a wastewater system easement clearing project. Andrew will present that one, and then our monthly operations report. So we have a pretty good agenda for the next meeting. Again, lots of stuff going on. There's a few project updates in part 2 of the report. If there's any questions on those, we can try to answer them.
Any more questions? Public questions? We on staff comments.
Okay, I have a couple of items, as I mentioned, for staff comments. First one is just a reminder announcement for the board members who are present that May 1st is the deadline for the financial responsibility and conflict of interest forms to Lisa. So if you have not done those, to please get those to her. Preferably before the end of the month, so she doesn't have to chase you down. The other item that I have is an information item. Wanted to talk with you briefly about the potential for an emergency water system interconnection with South Whitehall Township. And I have a map to share with you just to go over a couple of details. This is not an action item, it's just informational if there's any discussion, so that you are aware of something that we're working on. Just need to find it. Sorry, not that one. Not that one. 1 second. There we go. Took me a minute to get to it. The map that's on the screen is showing our what we call our central Lehigh division and other systems that abut our central Lehigh division. It's our water system. So the bottom southern and western portion of the system is our lower system. And we've talked before in previous discussions about our upper system, still part of the central Lehigh division, but having a higher elevation and more limited water supply that flows into the upper system. That's depicted here in the purple and then the red areas of the system. So just to kind of orient you, we have in the most western part of the upper system, property here, which is where some industrial development was proposed, and we were talking about an upper system pump station here. We're still working on design on that, but it's on hold pending development of this lot or other industrial sites up here. We also have in the more eastern portion of the system, a pump station that was constructed, help me out.
3 years ago.
About 3 years ago.
CLD.
The CLD pump station, and that is a transfer station to pump water from the lower system up into the upper system. So that's available as a water supply. We also have a couple of wells in the upper system, and we have another station that allows water to bleed down from the upper system down into the lower system. So this is a highly interconnected kind of system, but we are somewhat limited in supply and especially in storage. We have one reservoir, it's a 2 million gallon tank in Fogelsville, built in 1971. And we have some maintenance activities that we need to focus on here The challenge is when this tank is down and not in service, we have some risks associated with fire flow and also emergency supply. If there's a water main break in somewhere in the upper system, we really rely heavily on that tank. So in addition to the supplies we have here in our Central Lehigh division, we already have two interconnections with South Whitehall Township. South Whitehall system is depicted in the darker blue here. And so we have one on Hamilton Boulevard and one we call our Boards Tract interconnection. Both of those interconnections are into our lower system, so they don't provide true backup service to our upper system. So what we've been talking about with the township and internally is how to bolster supply into the upper system, and specifically for a project where we need to take this tank offline. And we have some really great opportunities here with South Whitehall to create low cost, high efficiency kind of project here to do an interconnection. So we're thinking that we're moving forward with design of an interconnection here. It will supply about 1,000 gallons per minute directly into the upper system, which is a great supplement to these other supplies that I just mentioned. At this point, we're looking at a one-way interconnection so that it provides the emergency service we need for the tank project. We'll talk about the tank project at a future meeting, but we want to get that one-way connection in place now so that we can do that project. And then a future phase would be to talk about a two-way connection or possibly a more permanent supply arrangement with South Whitehall. That's a down the line kind of option that we'll talk about later. South Whitehall has been a great partner in reviewing this option, and I think that we've developed like a good neighbor relationship with South Whitehall, working with them on their sewer issues and our sewer issues together, and now delving into the water supply side. So that's been very positive. So a couple of next steps, we're going to finalize design and begin procurement of materials for this interconnection. We're also working on an agreement. Mike Gall from King Spry has drafted an agreement for us to look at with South Whitehall. It'll be modeled after existing agreements that we have. The most current agreement we have for emergency interconnection is related to this Boards Tract that was done in 2018. So we have a really recent example to go by. And we'll be bringing future authorizations to the board for anything we need on the interconnection or on the tank project. I know Phil and Andrew have been working pretty heavily on this one. If there's anything I've missed at this point, you want to share?
You captured everything.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And so again, this is an informational item, and if there's any questions or concerns as we're moving forward on this pretty quickly, now's the time. We'd love to hear that, but just wanted to make sure the board was aware. So when we do bring something to you, you have some background.
Okay, thank you.
That's all I have for staff comments.
Okay. All right, solicitor comments.
No comments, thank you.
Okay. Public comments on any topics?
No comments, Brian. Thanks.
Thanks, Brian. There is no executive session, so without further ado, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Good afternoon.